You, Dan, that the working theory here is that this is the work of terrorists. They specifically believe this is the work of Osama bin Laden. This is pure speculation at the moment. As recently as yesterday, Dan, when we were making our rounds on what the latest terrorist threats were in the United States and abroad, there was no hint whatsoever that there was a threat against any domestic target in the United States. Frankly, that there is a roadmap, a blueprint, if you will, for precisely what happened today. And that was signed by Ramzi Youssef. This is the bomber who was involved in the World Trade Center originally and who had plans to hijack aircraft and target buildings in the United States, specifically the CIA.
Interrupt and say, Dateline Pittsburgh, large plane crashes are reported in western Pennsylvania. The source of this are officials at Somerset County Airport. No further details are available. We've had these large plane crashes reported now in western Pennsylvania, car bomb going on.
Thank you very much, Dan. Yes, there is a report of a large plane crash in western Pennsylvania at Somerset County Airport. According to the Associated Press, it crashed about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. The plane is believed to be a Boeing 767. It crashed about 10 o'clock Eastern Time. That would have been about 45 minutes ago. And the crash, of course, came the same morning of these crashes into the World Trade Center here in New York. If we can go back...
Terrific scene here in New York where the World Trade Centers, both of them, have collapsed. And we go to Jim Stewart in Washington, where the Pentagon has also been hit by an attack. Jim?
Dan, we've just received word from the FBI that a United Airlines flight has apparently crashed at Camp David, the home of, or the retreat of the president. We have no word on casualties. The FBI tells us only that they have a report from the FAA that they are trying to confirm that a United Airlines flight has crashed in the vicinity at Jim from Washington. Dan.
Jim, about this report that a United Airlines plane has crashed into Camp David, Maryland, the presidential retreat just outside of Washington. Repeat the source on that for our listeners and viewers, please.
The source of this information is an FBI official in Washington who says that he has been informed by the FAA, has not confirmed it himself, but has been informed by the FAA that a United Airlines flight, he says it's United Airlines Flight 93, has crashed into the vicinity of or at Camp David. Dan, I will tell you one other thing, too, that the FBI and terrorist experts here have immediately noted, and that is today, September the 11th, is the anniversary of the Camp David Accords, signed at that historic location after weeks of negotiations between the Arabs and the Israelis, and of course has been a thorn in the side of both parties now for some years, and a source of great consternation. You can't help but notice, according to the FBI, the coincidence of the date, and now, if this is true, the coincidence of the target. Dan.
Jim
Come
Stewart.
into focus now. First, an update on the attack on the Camp David vicinity. Secret Service personnel tell CBS producer Bill Owens that there was no damage on Camp David itself. Apparently, the crash occurred near there. The presumption is that Camp David was the target. Now, we are given some information now by federal law enforcement authorities about the sequence of the hijackings today that have led to these incidents. But we are told that there were 4 hijackings. The detail that we've been given thus far on those hijackings is American Flight 11, which is described as a 757 from Boston to the West Coast, United Flight 175 out of Dulles International Airport outside of Washington, D.C., American Flight 77 from Dulles to Los Angeles, and United Flight 93, which apparently was from Newark en route to San Francisco. Now, the only firm information that the FBI has shared so far is that the United Flight 93, is apparently the aircraft that went down in the vicinity of Camp David. Too early to say who is responsible for this. That hopefully will sort itself out in the time to come. I will tell you, though, it is openly being speculated on in the United States security apparatus that Osama bin Laden is the only person who had the apparatus, the money, and the desire to pull off what he did. They are also pointing, Dan, as we said earlier, at the coincidence here of this date. And dates are extremely important in the terrorist world. Sometimes they escape the notice of the American intelligence. Obviously, this one did. We've been caught flat-footed, in the words of one senior official. But September the 11th, 1978 was the signing of the Camp David Accords, which has long been a matter of dispute and notation in the Islamic world. There is also a recognition among federal law enforcement officials that the attack on the World Trade Center is something that had to be expected, in the sense that it is the only target that Osama bin Laden and his organization have said would be a primary target in the United States. It's the symbol of this nation, and it was, of course, in 1993 that it was attacked, Dan.
Late word on what's happening in and around Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, and in Pennsylvania.
That's right, Dan. Earlier this morning we told you about a plane crash near Pittsburgh, just north of the Somerset County Airport. Another plane that was hijacked today was United Flight 93, which was traveling from Newark, New Jersey to San Francisco. United Airlines has just confirmed that flight is the one that crashed outside of Pittsburgh this morning. As of this moment, we don't know how many folks were on board, don't have any idea of casualties.
Pennsylvania, people reported a low-flying jet a few miles from Camp David in Maryland.
They saw in commercial...
And perhaps ironically, the location where the Camp David Middle East Peace Accord was signed. There is no doubt that terror has come to our shores. The Afghanistan government, the Taliban, accused in the past of providing sanctuary for terrorist Osama bin Laden, claims they and he are not responsible. David Asman, Fox News.
Headed for Los Angeles, that he was able to keep the key open from the cockpit and that they could hear the hijackers asking him for cooperation and telling him if he cooperated he would not be hurt. Ironic in what they were saying, but that those reports were that he had been able to keep the key open and that they were speaking in very good and understandable English.
Someone said in clear English, "Don't do anything stupid." Then the transmitter went dead. I'm John Fowler.
These haunting images from Jerusalem. Palestinians smiling, cheering, celebrating in the streets, rejoicing in the deaths of thousands.
Hawkins is in Tel Aviv.
There's no shortage of people in the Middle East who, for various reasons, hate the United States. Much of the Arab world condemns the U.S. for its support of Israel, and there were some scattered celebrations when news of the carnage reached this part of the world. But while some Palestinian militants said America had it coming, all denied having anything to do with the attacks. Palestinian Authority President Yasser Arafat seemed as astonished as anyone else.
We are completely shocked. Completely shocked. Unbelievable.
Some Israeli terrorism experts say Palestinian groups don't have the ability to carry out attacks of such magnitude and complexity. Then, of course, there's Iraq, which has its own scores to settle with the United States. But for radical Islamic fundamentalists like Osama bin Laden, who's declared a religious war against America and has carried out successful attacks in the past, the hatred of the United States runs deeper than politics.
Most